Hey everybody, Blaise here, and today I want to talk to you a little bit about something that's a little bit more academic. I know over the last few weeks I've been showing you how to draw some of the characters that I've done for some of the Walt Disney feature animated films that I've worked on, but today I want to go back to basics. I want to give you a short little lesson in perspective. Now, perspective is something I started learning when I was about 8 years old, and it's something that I've been a student of and a fan of my entire life, learning the mathematics of it and really understanding how the world works from the point of perspective. And so I thought I'd show you a neat little trick today on how to find the center of anything in perspective, and also how you can translate that information to drawing a variety of different things, like repetitive things, like telephone poles going down the side of a street if you're having to draw a neighborhood, or a picket fence, or windows on a building. I want to show you how we can do that accurately in perspective. So why don't we come over to the drawing board. So the first thing I want to do is I want to draw straight up and down. I just created a horizon line. And I'm not going to get into all the basics of perspective, but a horizon line is the basis when we're talking about 1, 2, or 3-point perspective, okay? And so what I'm going to show you right now is just a little bit of 2-point perspective, and we're going to put a vanishing point right here and a vanishing point over here. And anything that goes in this direction down here is going to go to this vanishing point. Anything that goes in this direction is going to go to this vanishing point. And what I'm going to do first is I'm going to create the corner of a building. I've got my big triangle right here. And we're just going to say this right here is the corner. All right? Now, I want to go in perspective, and I want to go down this way. So I'm going to go right to here. I'm going to grab the bottom of that, and I'm going to go to my vanishing point, and I'm going to run it right down to about here. Okay? And now the top of this wall, or this building, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to run it down to the vanishing point right here. Just like so. So that's a nice long wall in perspective. Okay? Now let's draw the end of that wall. I'm going to move my pencil sharpener, and we'll just draw this end of the wall straight up and down. Just like so. So now we have a wall and perspective. Now let's do the same thing on the other side. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. Maybe this could be a train car or a trailer. There we go. Just bring that down just a little bit further. We're going to do the same thing on the bottom. We're going to run that in perspective right to our vanishing point. Just like that. There we go. And then once again, straight up and down, I'm going to draw a line. And that'll be the far corner. There we go, just connect that right there. So now we have kind of this rectangle in perspective, okay? Now, what I want to show you is how do we find the center of this wall, and how do we find the center of this wall? Well, anytime we want to find the center of something, let me draw it here. Let me make sure you can see it. If we draw a square, or any shape for that matter, that has 4 sides, and if we draw an X from corner to corner, there's our center, okay? Well, the same thing works in perspective. So if I want to find the center of this wall, all I have to do, let me do this in red. All I have to do is draw a line this way, and draw a line this way. And here you can see that the X is actually in perspective. And so if I draw, let me sharpen this pencil. Now if I draw a line straight up, I'm going to draw it lightly, we've got the center of that wall. But now also, since we've got this X, watch what we can do. I can just draw randomly, straight up and down here, How about I draw a line just on the edges of that X, like so, and then I connect it, just like we did with our vanishing point, from point to point on that X, like so, and then we go straight up and down again. And then one more time, we go from point to point on our vanishing point. There, now look what we've created. We've put a square in perspective in the center of that of the rectangle that we've just created. And now we can also create, if we wanted to create a recess inside that, if we grab this corner and go down to this vanishing point over here on this side, on the right, watch what happens. We can create a little recessed area by bringing that in a little bit and then coming up to the top and bringing that in a little bit. Now watch. Once again, I'm going to bring this straight up and down. Like so. And then I'm going to grab those corners, connect them to my vanishing point on the left. Watch what happens. And run it to there. And run it to here. Now look, now we've got something that's recessed inside. It's recessed inside. Now if I wanted to pretend that there's lighting, I could put this in shadow. And I could pretend that the light is way up above and it's casting a shadow maybe down here like this. And then what I would do is I would find where it touches here, connect it to that vanishing point, lightly sketch it in, and then there's the edge of the shadow there. And there. Now we're creating light and shadow, but we're using perspective to do it. And it creates something that feels much more believable and accurate. And we did all of this just based on finding that center point, like so. Okay? Now, I had talked about being able to repeat. So what happens, let's try finding the center point. Once again, let me sharpen my pencil. Let's find that center point on here on the long wall. Okay, so I'm going to draw a long X, just like we did on the short wall. And then I'm going to draw another, let me flip this over so I can see a little better. These are actually my tools from outside. These are my construction tools. These aren't actually drafting tools. All right, so now I'm going to draw another long X right there. Now we've compressed our perspective a little bit, so this is really compressing this down here, but it's still accurate, okay? So we're going to draw a line straight up and down. And there is our center. I know that looks weird, but that's the perspective, okay? So now, because we've compressed our perspective going this way, now we want to repeat that. So what do? We're going to draw an X again, but this time we're going to use these corners. That corner there from here to here, and then this corner, let me flip that over again. from here to here. Now what we've done is we found the center, and we've been able to create another line. Now if we do the same thing on this side, we'll create 4 equal spaces in perspective. 1, 2, and there's our point right there in the middle. So if I draw my line straight up and down, I'm not going to get into 3-point perspective. We're just going to talk about a little bit of 1-point and 2-point. See, now I have 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 equal spaces, but they're in perspective. They recede in perspective. Now I can continue to keep dividing these like so. Let me do that really quickly. So if I do that again, there's a divider there, a line there, and then a line here. Now once again, there's our line, and if I draw straight up and down, we've got a new division. Now here, I want to keep going down the line and divide each section, those 4 sections that we created, I want to divide each of those once again. And you can see how this can become, if you get a lot of lines going in here, you want to use different colored pencils sometimes so that you don't get confused. So there's another 1, 2, 3, and then let's divide the next one. We'll divide there, and divide there, and there we go. One more, and then we divide one more time. You can see if you just keep drawing X's and dividing, you'll keep creating smaller and smaller spaces, but you'll do it all in perspective. And this has a lot of applications if you're trying to create something in perspective. Like I said, you can create a chain link or a picket fence. You can create railroad tracks. You can create windows on a building. Anything that needs to be equally spaced, you can create by doing this. And now I'm going to color every other one. And that way you'll get to see those spaces a little bit better. So if there's our first space, then I'm going to skip one. There's our next space. So we're going to try to see it without the red. Don't look at the red. There's our next space, and then here's our next space. Like so. And then finally, here's our last space right here. I'm just going to color that in very quickly. There. And so you can see by dividing, starting from the first X, and then dividing those and creating a divider where you have two spaces, and then you divide those and you have 4 spaces. You divide those and you have 8 spaces. And you can see how you can infinitely divide this, but you can create perfect perspective by doing that. And you can see how we've created this interesting box, finding center points and being able to create equal halves, and therefore creating perspective in that way. Now there's another way you can, let's say we want to draw a road. So I'm going to put this aside. I want to take the same thinking. We're going to take it just a little bit further. So let's once again, I'm going to create with my with my level here, right about here. There we go. I'm going to create our horizon line. Okay. So that's the edge of the earth. That's as far as you can see. That's our horizon. Okay. And maybe there's mountains up here. Haha, yes, there's mountains and all kinds of stuff. But right along here, that's our horizon. All right. Now let's say there's a road that goes off into that horizon right there. Let's make our vanishing point. There's a road that goes right there. I'm going to sharpen my pencil. Okay. There's that road. So I'm going to draw a little line here. Right there. And here's the edge of the road. Coming down this way. And we're standing in the middle of the road. It just disappears off into the distance like that. Okay? So there's our road that's going off into the distance, and this is all blacktop. Now, let's say we have right here, over on this side, let's say we have a telephone pole. I'll give that a little bit of thickness. We have a telephone pole right there. Whoops, didn't quite get that even. Okay, so there's a telephone pole sitting in the ground, like so, okay? And it's above the horizon line there, so you're going to see it like that, and below the horizon line, we're going to see it like that. But here, we've got a telephone pole right there. Now our next telephone pole, we're going to draw this in perspective. And I'm going to lightly, with the red pencil, I'm going to lightly draw this down. Get rid of that. I'm just going to draw a line from the center of the pole, and then from the center of the top, like so. So that's the path our telephone poles are going to take. Now let's say our next telephone pole is let's just put it right here. They're pretty closely spaced together. Let's say that. I'm going to put one right here. All right. Put it straight up and down, right about there. And I'm going to put it about this thin. I'm not going to worry about breaking down how to show the thickness in perspective. That's a whole other lesson. I just want to show you how to figure out how far apart to space them. So this way, there's our next one right there. And we'll color that one in. So now we have two telephone poles spaced apart. Now how do we figure out the rest and make them the same perspective? Well, the first thing we want to do is I want to create an X. Remember that? Remember how we talked about that? We're going to create an X from this pole to this pole. Right? From the bottom to the top. And I'm going to go from the bottom to the top up here. Boom. So here's our X. Now what I want to do is I'm going to take where that X is, and I'm going to draw a line just like this to the vanishing point. Like that. Okay? So you can see we've got a line right here. We found our center point, and then we drew a line. Okay? Now, how do I find where that next pole is? Well, since we drew this line, we found out it crosses right here. So if we draw a line from here to here, we're going to create a giant box, and this will be the center point. And this distance and this distance will be equal. Let me show you what I mean. So we're going to come down here. I know it's going to look weird because, but this is exactly how it's going to work. You come up here, like so, and right at this point, there's our next pole. Right where it crosses, because we connected the center point here to here. I'm going to bring this up. As they recede, they're going to get closer and closer together. So there's our next post and perspective. Now we want to do it again. So let's start at the top. Once again, there's our center point because it's already crossing right there. So we're going to start at the top, come down. I'm going to use that red pencil again. And boom, right there is our next pole. And I can keep doing this infinitely. And you'll see in perspective, they get closer and closer together. So once again, we're crossing our center point here. And this is all done from finding that center point on a box in perspective. So here we drew the line down. There it hits our bottom line going there. And look at that. We've got a fence line or telephone poles or whatever we want to call them going off into the distance. Let's do a couple more and I'll show you how cool it's going to look. There's one there. And you can see even the way our lines cross, the red lines right here, these coming down, you can see how they are going away in perspective as well. And so there's where it hits the ground. And once again, pull that up. Okay? Let me get this sharpened as well. And here we're going to start, once again, at the top of the pole, cross down here, coming down there, straight up and down again. And you can see how they get closer and closer and closer, but they're all in perfect perspective, all because we're finding those center points. That's the most important part. And you can work this over and over and over again to infinity. Now, like I said, you can use this to also create windows. Here we're just creating a fence line or a telephone pole line. But you can just do this into infinity until they get further and further and further away. But everything is done in perfect perspective. Okay? So, there's a little bit of an academic lesson on perspective. I know it was maybe a little bit boring, but to me, this is stuff that's very exciting. This is how the world around us works. Mathematics is all around us. And for me, it was when I started hitting my geometry class, which I hated, by the way, but once I started applying what I learned in geometry to my art and perspective, everything opened up. I realized that we are ruled by mathematics, by math. It's all around us. And when we can start cracking some of those codes, you can start creating a world that feels believable. We're drawing, just through drawings and a little bit of math, you can create really believable perspective. It's really, really cool. And by the way, if you want to learn more, get more art lessons, things about character design, painting, all kinds of stuff, come on over to my website, creatureartteacher.com. We've got all kinds of art lessons over there. And and I'm going to be creating a perspective course in the near future. So I hope you guys will stick around for that. So anyway, I hope you learned something today. Go out, put some beauty back into the world, and I'll talk to you next time. Thanks.